All right, so the NBA offseason as a whole is starting to wind down a little bit. So we're going to go through the top 5 remaining free agents that we have on the market. We've gone through a couple of these before with our previous top 10s. Obviously, some of them are still available, but so many restricted free agents have already been picked up, so I figure we could refresh our list. Let's start with number 5. We got Dwyane Wade. 36 years old. He's currently doing a little bit of a media tour in China with his shoe deal. And he was asked if he wanted to come back next season, and he said he just hasn't really thought about it yet, that he's focusing on his life after basketball, and that he'll make a decision about whether or not he wants to come back in a couple of weeks. That says to me, I don't think Dwyane Wade wants to come back. I think he knows that just the pregame part of it is what a lot of these NBA veterans dread. The preparing for an NBA game, the preparing for an NBA season, the getting in shape to go up against other superstar athletes. It's tough, especially if you're 36 old with the amount of miles that Dwyane Wade has on his body. Personally, I think he's going to retire, or Dwyane Wade could go to China. There was a report that Dwyane Wade might get picked up by a Chinese team and that they're going to throw some massive offer at him. That'd be a great deal for Dwyane Wade. Go pick up like 25 mil, and in China money, and then come back and retire and be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Maybe take up an NBA front office job. Maybe you try to be a coach. Maybe you become an agent or an advisor, whatever you want to be, Dwyane Wade. You do you, Wade. You've deserved it at this point. Let's go to my number 4 free agent still left on the board. We got Jamal Crawford. I'm kind of surprised that he hasn't been picked up yet. I thought that someone for the veteran minimum would have grabbed him, maybe the Warriors, maybe the Wizards, maybe the Celtics. Any NBA Finals contender that needs a shooter off the bench should look at Jamal Crawford. I know he's not what he used to be because obviously, he's really old now and he doesn't really have the same explosion that he used to, but he's still a good shooter. He can still knock down threes. He's a good rotational guy off the bench. I wouldn't give up, I wouldn't pay him anything more than the veteran minimum. I think 10 points per game is probably his maximum at this point, but I think the Warriors might end up picking him up. They're the only team that has been even closely rumored to picking him up at this point. No other team has been rumored to even be talking to him. The Wizards were kind of hinted at as maybe a possibility for Jamal Crawford, but I think with picking up Dwight Howard, they're very much out of that race. So I'm going to go with the Warriors. I think that's where he's going to end up. Maybe he hops on there like David West did to get one more run at a finals before he finally retires. But Jamal Crawford at this point, still pretty surprised he hasn't been picked up, and he is number 4 on our list. Let's go to number 3. And yeah, people, this is the NBA free agency list is starting to dwindle a lot here. Our number 3 player is Greg Monroe, who, if you watched any NBA basketball last year, especially playoff basketball at the Celtics, Greg Monroe was bad. I'm talking bad. Like, he can't play defense. That dude is slow on his feet, and he was having all kinds of problems last year. And one of the I would say, the easiest system for any player in the NBA to fit into. I think that Brad Stevens, you could take any NBA player right now, fit him into the Stevens system, and he would probably perform better than he would on any team. I think at that point, that's just what we've seen out of any random free agent that they picked up off the block. Aaron Baines was like a 4th center off the bench for the Spurs a couple years ago. He goes to the Celtics last year, all of a sudden he's starting games in the playoffs and shooting threes. Like, it's crazy, and Greg Monroe couldn't fit into that system. If Greg Monroe can't fit into the Celtics system, then there's only one place that he's going to be able to fit, and that's the Washington Wizards, because they love just picking up random guys off the scrap heap that don't make any sense to sign on to their team. Greg Monroe is going to end up being a Washington Wizard. If not, I think we could see another scenario where he doesn't end up getting picked up until maybe around February, as someone needs maybe just a rotational big as they head into the playoffs. All right, let's go to our next remaining free agent here. Number 2, we got Rodney Hood, the restricted free agent. Very inconsistent in the playoffs, but in the actual season, he looked good. He still has a nice jump shot. He's still very young, only 24 years old. I think that Rodney Hood could still be an impact player for a lot of teams. There were some rumors that the Sacramento Kings were going to throw him an offer after missing out on Zach LaVine. There was a rumor that the Denver Nuggets were going to throw something at him. Obviously, that's not going to happen anymore due to what's going on, obviously, with them picking up Isaiah Thomas. So right now with Rodney Hood, it's kind of Cleveland or bust, isn't it? I mean, there's no really else that he could sign. There isn't a lot of places that still have a lot of money. I would love to see the Kings toss a max contract at him. Look, people have gone on me in some YouTube comments for me saying that the Kings have legitimate talent for next year. They do. They have some good young talent. I'll list it off for you again. Let's say you add Rodney Hood, De'Aaron Fox, Buddy Hield, Bogdan Bogdanović, Rodney Hood, Harry Giles, Willie Cauley-Stein, Marvin Bagley, Zach Randolph. That's some decent talent. I'm not saying they're going to win, 50 games, but who knows? Maybe the Kings actually have a season similar to what the Lakers had last year, where they finally got out of the depths of the NBA and won something like 30 to 35 games. It's possible. Sure, it isn't great, but anything's better for the Kings right now than winning under 30 games again. So I think they should make a run at Rodney Hood, but I still think he'll end up back with the Cavs. And for Christ's sakes, the Cavs need him. I mean, what are they going to do? They're going to start Cedi Osman at the 3? I know the dude had a great summer league, but are you really going to start Cedi Osman? Are you really going to do that? Come on. You're not going to start Cedi Osman. Bring back Rodney Hood and, actually field a legitimate NBA team next season. All right, let's go to our last remaining free agent. There's only one guy that can really be number one on this list. It's Clint Capela. Look, I mentioned this before with Tobias Harris. How could Tobias Harris end up asking for a max contract if Clint Capela, of all people, is not going to get a max contract? Clint Capela was one of the 5 best defensive big men in the NBA right now. Whether or not you consider his offense, I mean, he was great in the playoffs and he was awesome against the Warriors, but Clint Capela defensively was incredible last year. He was the entire centerpiece of the Rockets defense last year and has looked better every single year in the NBA. So Clint Capela at number 1 on our list. I'm still pretty surprised that the Rockets have not just given this guy whatever he wants. I know that they're a little cap strapped with this Chris Paul deal that they gave out because, I guess giving a 33-year-old, $160 million is a little bit of a risk, but I just wonder why they're not giving Clint Capela, or at least finding a middle ground with him. I know that he wants, a Steven Adams deal, $20+ million a year, and I get that they offered him 18, but you can't give him that 5th year and say, hey, we'll give you 19 and a half. Like, look, what is their team without Clint Capela? Their team without Clint Capela is it's a rudderless ship. They have nothing on this whole team that can fill up what he brings on defense. Like, again, their center, if they don't bring back Clint Capela, is Nene. That will end up being the Rockets starting center next year, or Chinanu Onaku. That'll end up being their starting center as well. A team that made it all the way one game from the NBA Finals is going to enter the season without paying their 3rd best player. I don't understand it. It still confuses me to this day why the Rockets were not one of the first teams to get Clint Capela under wraps. I get the Celtics waiting a while for Marcus Smart. I get the Bulls waiting a while for Zach LaVine. I understand the Bucks playing hardball with Jabari Parker. Totally understand it. The guys were asking for way too much money. Clint Capela is not asking for way too much money. He is totally deserving of any money that he asked for at this point. Because remember, people, do not pay the position. Pay the player. And if you're paying the player with Clint Capela, at this point, he deserves all the money in the world that the Rockets are able to offer him. So Clint Capela, our number 1 free agent that is still left on the board. Let's recap it for you, and we'll go through who our top 5 remaining free agents are as we enter the dark ages of the NBA offseason. Number 1, Clint Capela. Number 2, Rodney Hood. Number 3, we got Greg Monroe. Number 4, Jamal Crawford. And number 5, we have Dwyane Wade. Those are your top 5 remaining free agents.